Hello my friends, welcome back to another little tutorial. I'm just having my cup of tea, my morning tea. I hope you're all keeping very well out there today. Okay, a nice little landscape for you today. A lovely little sunset. Now this is one, I know I'm trying to cut back on sunsets a little bit because I know we're going into the winter months and that kind of thing. So there's just one more that I really want to do. I've had this for a while. It's a beautiful, beautiful little sunset seascape, but because I have this very wide canvas, I think it's perfect for these types of scenes. This is a canvas. I bought a pack of 3 in Aldi's. Beautiful, beautiful canvases. I did one last week as well with the reflections, beautiful wide reflections with a bit of autumn colour in it. Same size canvas, and they're just perfect for these wide kind of panoramic views, if you like. Now the picture I have, it's just a regular sunset, but I cropped it very, very narrow and very wide to give a beautiful panoramic sunset on this canvas. So I think you're going to enjoy this, and there's going to be a little bit of detail, you know yourself, but we'll try and keep it simple and easy to follow. Just a few colours. I have my palette up overhead this time. It's just easier because of the canvas. If I put the palette to one side, the camera will never fit all of that in without being right back to the back of the studio. So I'm close up and I can see the palette, the canvas and the reference photograph. So let's have a bit of fun. And I also have a lovely one coming as well today on my Patreon page. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's going to be a really nice one if you want to pop over and take a look. Or if you're already a Patreon, thank you so much for supporting me, and you will see what's coming up later today on Patreon as well. So please stay tuned. Lots of painting going on today. It's a very overcast, dull day outside here in Cork in Ireland. Rain, rain, rain. Rain all day long. So you can probably hear it on the roof of the studio. I'm not sure if you can, but it's just bucketing down non-stop. So I thought, let's just go into the studio and do a bit of painting for you all. Okay, stay tuned. I'll be right back. Right, my friends, let's go and have a bit of fun with this. Here's my canvas. I put the palette on this side. Reference photograph should be just there. Isn't that just gorgeous? Beautiful colours. It may look complicated, but I'm going to just try and simplify this really, to be quite honest. There's no reason for us to be going into a huge amount of detail with this picture. So let's just have a bit of fun. My canvas is 24 inches by 8. So very wide, very narrow. My colours are titanium white, Naples yellow, burnt sienna, magenta, cadmium red, cadmium yellow, phaylo blue, lamp black. I think that should do us quite nicely, don't you? Let's go and have a bit of fun. I put some masking tape across just above halfways. You could have went a little bit higher if you like, but I'm going to have a frame covering about a ½ inch of this canvas, you see. So I don't want to lose too much of my sky. So I just came down a bit. I'm going to take a very soft brush. It's a very old, soft, cheap, synthetic brush. Look, nice and soft, no bristles, no hard bristle brushes in these paintings, apart from a fan brush. All my brushes are very soft, synthetic, very old, worn, cheap brushes, flat brushes. All right, I'm going to start with that. I've turpentine with some thinners, with some linseed oil in there. A little bit of turpentine with a drop of linseed oil, just to make a nice little medium. Let's dampen the brush, dry it on some tissue. I have a damp brush. I'm going to start with those yellows. And let's take some cadmium yellow. And looking at the colours, they're quite rich, aren't they? I'm thinking I just want to tone it down a little. You know, a lot of people may go in with solid cadmium yellow on this. I think cadmium yellow on its own is much too vibrant and saturated. So I think I just want to tone it down a little with perhaps a touch of cadmium red. Just a tiny touch. Look, so it's more of a kind of an orangey, yellowy tone. I'm not going to use white for this to thicken it up because that makes it very chalky. I think I just try a little bit of Naples yellow, because Naples yellow is the very same consistency and has the same opaqueness as white. So if I'm mixing a light yellow or a soft yellow, I would use Naples yellow instead of white, because you're still keeping the yellow colour. You see what I mean? If I put white into this, it's just going to make it look very chalky, almost like a pastel sort of a colour. So I'm being careful. I don't want to go too chalky with this. Bit more Naples, and that should be a nice little colour to get us started. How about that? So you can see now this is a lovely soft yellow. If I was to use cadmium yellow on its own, look at the difference. Isn't that very, very luminous? It's just too luminous, it's too in your face. So I think a soft yellow is much, much nicer for a sunset. So a touch of cadmium red, even just that on its own, cadmium yellow and cadmium red. You see, that makes a nice softer kind of a colour, doesn't it? A much more pleasing colour on the eye. So I'm just going to go a little bit across with this, not too far. I have a thin layer of paint I'm just dragging across. Now I'm going to come to here and stop. And as it comes off, you can see it goes into a more of an orangey colour, doesn't it? So let's just take some more cadmium yellow and a bit more cadmium red. That gives us a nice pinky orangey kind of a shade. Okay, it's a nice orange. I think that's a nice orange. Soften it across. And I'm going to go up slightly. I want to keep the angle of my clouds as well, because I really like the angle of that cloud coming up. It's quite nice, isn't it? I'll put a little bit over here as well, just for good measure. And I'll stop at that. I'm going to dip my brush in turpentine and clean it on the tissue. Just soak up the paint. I'm not swishing this around with my turpentine, okay? I'm just dipping it in once, taking it out, and letting the tissue soak the colour from the brush. That's the trick to having your turpentine nice and clean. So my next step is, I'm going to take some white, and I'm going to put a strip of white just across the top of this. Now what that's going to allow me to do is to go from this yellow into that kind of greeny, turquoisey green colour above. I don't want any very rich greens in this. So if I try to mix a turquoise in with this yellow, or if I try to make it light blue, it's going to just go all green, isn't it? The sky, it has a touch of green about it, but I think that little bit of white will just neutralise the colour, just a little. Now I'm going to go for a very rich orange, in around by the sun and down on the right hand side. So cadmium yellow, a little cadmium red, and I'm going very strong now with this, lots of paint. And then a touch of sienna. And that touch of sienna will just make that a nice, rich, warm colour. You see that? I'm going to come along and just go around by where the sun is, just to give that little bit of a glow. You see the way I'm going around in a little circle there? Just like that. And leave it soften away. As it then comes across here, I'm going to just add a little touch of magenta. So you see, my friends, what I'm doing is, I'm looking, as I go along, I can see there's a hint of a sort of a purpley colour coming in, a pinky colour coming in over here, in with those clouds. So I'm just going to add a little touch of magenta into this side. And what I'm doing here is, and this is what a lot of people don't do in painting, I'm planning ahead. So if I put a little touch of pink here, all right, I then know that I can put a nice little purple cloud in here without making the colours sort of muddy and dull. Does that make sense? So I'm planning ahead. Because if I try to put a purple colour over a yellow, it's just going to go a muddy, greeny kind of a colour. So I'm planning ahead. A little touch of pink, I'm preparing for the next step, you see. So what have we got? We have a nice light blue up there, don't we? I'm going to start putting the blue in first, that kind of a greeny shade of blue on the top. I'll start with some phaylo blue. You see how thin that is? It's a very thin colour. Look, I have a bit of turpentine on my brush. It's almost like a watercolour. But then I thicken this up with some white. And that thickens it right up. So keep going with little bits until you get the shade that you want. You don't have to go absolutely crazy with any of this. Now I'm going to pick up a touch of the yellow, because it's sort of a turquoisey blue, isn't it? Especially over here. Would that be correct? Maybe a touch more white, just to lighten that a little bit more. I'm going to go along right across the top of this. Maybe a touch more blue and then a touch more white. I'm doing little bits at a time. There's no point in going in and just grabbing loads and loads of colour, because you're just wasting paint, you really are. I disagree with people sometimes making big puddles of colour and then just using one brush full, and then the rest is just left there doing nothing. I just don't get that sometimes. I know everybody paints their own way, but when you're on a budget, and let's be honest, most people learning to paint, and even amateurs as well, will be on a budget. They can't afford to just buy loads and loads of paint whenever they want. So I'm probably the master of sparing the paint and being very careful. That's just the way I grew up when I was painting. I never had money to go and buy lots of expensive materials, so I had to make everything last. And I think it's just stuck with me. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, you tell me, but it's just kind of stuck with me over the years. So we had that nice layer of turquoisey kind of a blue colour up there. Now over here we can kind of soften a little bit to the yellow because we had that white in between, remember? So that's going to help, you see. And what the white does, it just sort of keeps the colours nice and clean on your canvas, so you don't get any sort of muddiness, if you understand. Nice, clean, soft colours. So I'm done with the background. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush and start putting in some nice clouds. So the clouds, I always start with the darker shade of the clouds. When I'm painting clouds, I do the darks first and then the lights. So let's get a nice plum. Some phaylo blue, plenty of magenta. And I'm going on the pink side of plum with this. Okay? So the warm side. So maybe a touch of cadmium red as well. And because I'm going around the yellow, it's going to be more on the pink side. So a lot more of red than blue. So you want to get like a sort of a red grape kind of a shade, if that makes sense. So I'm going to start by going down just at an angle like this with that cloud. Okay. I'm going to start putting more cadmium red into this, because I can see it already starting to go muddy where it's going into that orange. And let's just pop in a suggestion of a bit of cloud up there. I'm just simply swishing this brush around, and I'm actually picking up that colour underneath as well. And sometimes that's a good thing, because that really helps. A bit more cadmium red as it comes across by the sun. I'm going to go up and around that sun, and I'm going to sort of flick it outwards. So what the impression I want to get with this is the impression of the sun in the middle and the clouds kind of flicking away from the sun. I'm after that kind of feeling, if you understand what I mean. So you see the way I'm just sort of flicking these outwards ever so slightly with just little bits. I'm just catching the sky with just the corner of my brush here and there. As it comes across now, I'm going to start making this slightly warmer. I'm going to take cadmium red, and I'm going to take a touch of cadmium burnt sienna as well. I'm sort of mixing this in the same spot. Okay? And I just want to make it nice and sort of warm just around that sun area just there. And I'm also going to use this colour while I have it to come up here and create some of these sort of ones, flicking down, kind of all congregating towards the centre of the painting. So you get a feeling of what I'm kind of doing here. They're all kind of coming down and congregating into the middle of the painting. Does that make a bit of sense? Let me try that again. Cadmium red, burnt sienna, and we can even put a bit of that in around here as well. I know we have a rich orange around there. I'm going to put that in just a moment as well. I'm just playing around right now with warm colours, creating a few little bits of cloud here and there. I'm focusing on the dark section of the cloud. So I'm looking at the dark side of the clouds, the dark colours. So I'm going to clean that brush again. I like this brush now, so I'm going to stick with this. It seems to be working. I'm going to then make a rich, reddy orange. Cadmium yellow and cadmium red. Plenty of paint. I'm going to go around like that with that colour and just allow it to sort of fizzle and disappear up into those clouds like that, look. So I'm just sort of flicking it upwards into those clouds. And this is all just building and building your layers. You know, there's no point in trying to go in straight away with rich, definite colours here and there. I find it much easier to try and just build up colours as you go, because it just seems to give you much more control over your painting. Now I've a very soft brush here, look, and I'm just going to soften these outwards and inwards. I'm going to kind of drag them out to the corners and pull them into the centre. And that's dragging the paint around and creating direction in your clouds as well. So look, I'm going to drag these ones out very gently. I'm barely touching the paint with this. I just want to soften those brush strokes away. That's all I want to do, really. So we're going from the centre outwards. That's quite nice now, isn't it? I'm going to soften them across the bottom as well. And let me have a look and see. I'm going to make a nice little purple for over here, a reddy purple. We already have some here, look. I'm going to pop some of that and just soften it in a little bit more to that cloud. Because I see I have a little bit more blue on one side there and I don't like that. So I'm just going to soften this a little bit. Like so. And it's starting to come together, you know, little bit at a time. It's starting. I'm going to mix a nice little bit of a dark for the shades of the clouds. So again, a bit of phaylo blue and some magenta. We have a nice kind of a purple there now. And I'm going to go in with that little bit of purple and just imagine let me take a bit more blue actually perhaps. I'm just going to imagine that it's catching the undersides of some of those clouds. So sort of the bottom section. Now I don't want to overdo this. I don't want to go crazy with loads of colour. Maybe a touch of cadmium red, soften it slightly. And we have a couple of nice dark ones up here. I'm really just experimenting with my brush right now. I'm letting the brush do things itself. Sometimes it's better to just allow the brush to do what it wants rather than forcing it a certain way and hoping that it works out. I'm just kind of letting the brush go. If I don't like it, I can paint over it. But certainly, this little bit of cool colour around here, I think, is going to soften the sky just a little bit. See a bit of cool blue, we have a bit of cool blue just here and there. Tiny little bit. And you can mix it up, you can make a mess of it all, whatever you like, it's up to yourself. But if you don't try it, you're never going to know. That's what I say. So that's why I like to try different things and just see what happens. It's only paint. Come on, it's only paint, let's have a bit of fun. Now, I'm going to soften this in with my soft fan brush, make it nice and soft. Lovely soft sunset sky, swooping in towards the centre of our painting. And now it's time for those nice rich highlights. I'm going to take a smaller brush for that, and let me look. I have two small brushes with me now. I don't know which one to use. I think I'll go with this brush. Just a number 4, a number 4 flat, soft, synthetic flat brush, or any small brush you have will do fine. It's just for a bit more control. That's all. Let's go straight into some cadmium yellow. I'm going to pick up cadmium yellow, and I'm going to come into the centre here and just swish a bit of that cadmium yellow around in a circle, and I'm going to bring it down and soften it as well. So what I want is around the sun a nice rich cadmium yellow, softening it outwards into that orangey colour up there, look. So you can see now why I put that sort of an orange around here, because that gives the effect of the sun glowing through the clouds and on the clouds. It really does. I think it's lovely. Lovely colour. So I'm just using paint on its own, okay? Nothing else. Just paint. Then I'm going to go into some titanium white and some cadmium yellow and a touch of cadmium red, just a touch, because what I want to do is create some highlights on the clouds up here, but I don't want any kind of greeny shades. I don't want to be messing it up. I don't want to be making a mess with lots of yellow, so I'm just adding that touch of reddy colour to neutralise the chance of any greens. Now you will get a few. You will get a few little bits of green mixing together with the yellow. But just add little brush strokes like this, look, and just let them soften. Let them soften away. Then you can mix even more of an orangey shade. An orangey shade will work much better. I'm just dabbing my brush here, there and everywhere. And to be honest, I'm really hardly even looking at the photograph. I'm just going with my painting and just putting them in where I feel they need to be. Because you're never going to get it right. You're never going to get it completely right. So just sometimes you're better off just not even looking at the reference photograph and putting them in yourself. Sometimes that works better as well. So just a few here and there. And then I'm going to take my soft brush again and just soften them out, look. Soften them out with your brush, because they're so far away you're not going to see much in the way of detail. The next step is to get some nice bright whitey yellow, cadmium yellow with some white, and I want to go right into the center here. I'm just going to put that nice little circle in there. And what I tend to do when I'm doing skies like this with suns and all that kind of thing, what I like to do is to take any old flat worn kind of a brush and simply dab around the edge. And that softens that line right around all the way, and it softens the paint into the surrounding area. That gives you a lovely hazy kind of a sun in the sky, doesn't it? Doesn't that make a big difference already? And then I go back into my colour. Now while I have this bright colour, I'm going to just add 1 or 2 bright highlights here and there. Just while I have it, because when I'm finished, otherwise I'm going to be looking back when I'm finished and I'm going to be thinking, I should have put some here, I should have put some there. So while I have it right now, I would like to just perhaps add some extra little highlights into some of the clouds. I think it should make a big difference. And I might just put a very strong strip of yellow along the bottom as well. So I'm going to go back in now with some cadmium yellow around the sun like this, right? I'm going to put it around. And to be honest, these are things now that I'm just sort of trying as I go. Because for me, there's no set way of painting any particular painting. I don't have a specific set of rules, and I don't get it done exactly as I go. I'm just adding little things as well as I paint, just like you are sitting at home now and you're painting your lovely artwork, and you're going to try this and maybe try that, and that's exactly what I do. I just try different things. Now I'm going to go in with some white, a nice little dollop of white just in the center, and I'm going to start softening that outwards as well. And the idea here is to get brighter and brighter and brighter bit by bit. So then I'll clean my brush. I'll take just white on its own, and I put a little dollop of white in the middle, and I start softening that around the edge again. So now all of a sudden we have this rich, bright sun in the center, don't we? And just soften that around on the edge again, very gently, just tapping the edge of the colour with a very soft brush. I'm happy with that. I'm happy enough with that. I don't have to worry about this being too perfect. It's a painting. It's not supposed to be perfect, is it? I always say, even when I comment on people's paintings, I try to avoid the word perfect too much, because I don't think any painting is perfect. A painting is a painting, and it's an artwork. It's evolving. It's an interpretation of somebody's inner mind and what they're seeing. Now, every painting is perfect in its own right, but I don't try and say it looks perfect, because everyone is different. Let's move on. I'm blabbering on here, aren't I? I'm really blabbering on today. I don't know. Maybe it's the coffee, huh? Could be. Let's move down and get some of this colour in for the ocean. And I'm going to start now with a nice rich colour and just start filling in the ocean in a kind of a solid block of colour. I'm getting phaylo blue, some magenta, a little turpentine. I want this damp-ish. I don't want it very wet, but a little bit damp, just so that it moves around nicely. I'm going to take a little cadmium red, perhaps. So I'm thinking a base colour. That's what I'm thinking right now. A nice little base colour which I can work on. A little bit more blue, perhaps. Let's try this. And then a touch of white. A little touch of white gives you the actual true colour of what it's going to be. So you can see now when I added a touch of white there, you can see it's a light bluey sort of a shade. I'm going to add a touch of cadmium yellow into this. Just a tiny, tiny, tiny little touch. Because I want this to reflect the colour of that light green sky later on. So I'm just going to go along now with this, along the horizon line. I'm going to stop before I get to the center, because you can see the colour warms up as it gets to the center. So let me just mix up some more for the other side. Little touch of that. I'm just making it kind of a bluey shade of purple for all the world. Bluey shade of purple. And stop there. I'm now just going to fill in. I'm going to leave the center. You see the way I'm leaving that center there, because we have nice warm colors in there. I don't want to go too blue with all of this. Let's start putting in some warm colors for the middle. Take some cadmium red, and I'll take some magenta, and then perhaps a tiny touch of phaylo. Tiny touch. I'm going to start with this colour first in the blue. I'm going to bring it across over to that side. Now don't worry about, you see those mistakes? Don't worry about those. We can paint right over those later on. Please do not worry. Now, I've lost my photograph. There it is, it's back again. I'm putting this pink in the middle as an early stage because again, I'm planning ahead. Remember what I said earlier about planning ahead? So I'm going to plan on putting nice rich oranges in here. So I need a nice warm background to start on. Let's, okay, I'm going to start lightening some colours. I'm going to start getting some phthalo blue with white and putting a touch of cadmium yellow into that. And I'm just simply going to start brightening with some lighter shades of a greeny blue. Cadmium yellow, phthalo blue and some white. And I'm going to start over here, look. I'm going to start just popping some of those in here and there. It's mixing with the pink, which is a good thing as well. And you can begin to see that kind of glow where it's catching the light from the sky. Now a lot of this for me, just like you, it's trial and error. I'm trying it to see if it works. Sometimes it works lovely, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm by no means a fantastic artist who went to college and all of that kind of stuff. Oh no, not me. I didn't go to college, I didn't study art, I didn't study anything like that. I just picked up a brush and started painting because it's what I like to do. And don't ever let anybody put you down because you haven't gone to art college or you haven't gone here or gone there or whatever the case may be. If you can paint and you enjoy it, that's all that matters. I'm going to start putting some warm colours in the centre. Cadmium red, cadmium yellow, maybe a touch of burnt sienna. I'm going to start with that colour for now, look, just a little bit of a browny reddy orange, just along the centre for now. And I'm just kind of getting ready now for the sort of warm oranges in the centre of the painting. So you see the way I'm preparing the background to get ready for those orange colours. That nice kind of a rich dark red in there will really help when it comes to the rich oranges. So let me get some cadmium yellow. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush, I think, for this. I will go back to, let me see. I'm going to clean this medium-sized flat brush. Just get that purple out of that brush. If you have a clean one, all the better. I'm going to take some cadmium yellow and cadmium red. And what I'm doing now is building up a slightly thicker colour. Okay, you can see I'm almost using just colour on its own. And I'm just going to start putting this colour bit more red, I would say. And you know, when you're doing this, you always have to sort of fine tune your colours, don't you? Sometimes you may need a little bit more red or a little bit more yellow. It's a matter of just trying it and seeing what happens. That's what I say. Just try it and see. Because it's very difficult to put a solid yellow on top of all of this. It's just going to go green and mucky because it's wet, they're oil paints. So what you need to do, what I try to do, is build up the colours brighter and brighter as I go to get ready for that nice, rich, bright yellow at the end. So again, I'm going to take cadmium yellow, cadmium red, perhaps a little white. So I look kind of a nice pinky colour, a salmon sort of a colour. And I'll just keep building and building and building until I finally have a background where I can put that nice, rich, bright yellow on. So I'm just softening this colour through. And you'll notice we do have a lot of blue in the ocean as well. The yellowy colours seem to be sort of limited to the centre of the painting. But then we also have some lovely pinks coming out to the right and the left at the same time. So I'm taking magenta with Naples yellow, just paint on its own, and I'm going to start putting those lovely pinky colours into the blue, look. And what that does is it automatically helps to bring those yellowy orangey colours out into the ocean with that bit of pink going across the ocean here and there, you see, just like that. I'm cleaning my brush in between as well. Give the brush a good clean between each pass because you're picking up that blue very quickly. Now you may have an easier way of doing this. If you have a certain technique which works for you, please do use that technique. But this for me is all, it's a kind of a slow process. It's literally just brightening colours as you go. Brightening your colours bit by bit, just a little bit at a time. So I now have a nice bright orangey hue. There's a bit more yellow in this, and I'm just going to start putting that in. A bit more yellow. Again, just working the colours up to a higher shade. Cadmium yellow, cadmium red, and some white. And the final step in all of this later on will be using the palette knife to apply lots of this colour and create texture across the waves. So it's getting there, albeit a little slowly, but we're getting there. I'm going to stop at this. I'm going to leave this second half until the very end. I want to concentrate on this up here. We have some lovely waves breaking, don't we? And I want to create some of those waves. I'm going to get my palette knife. My nice flat palette knife. I'm going to take some very dark colours here, okay? I'm going to take some phaylo blue and magenta. I only have a little bit on my knife, okay? I just have a tiny, tiny little bit. Maybe some cadmium red. I don't want to go very blue. I want to go very dark, dark, reddy plum shade with this. What I'm going to do is start putting in dark sections up here. So I'm simply scraping it across, and you see the way it sort of automatically goes up and down itself, creating almost the crests of the little waves. That's the type of feeling that I want to get away off there in the distance. We have lots of sort of dark waves breaking, light waves breaking. So I want to then soften these in with my brush in a moment, but I just want to create that feeling of movement way off in that distance. I use a little bit of cadmium red on its own when it comes towards the center for the sun. But you can see now the way we have lovely texture in that seascape way off in the distance, just by using the palette knife. Okay, then I'm going to start going a little darker, phaylo blue, magenta, and some black. And I'm only using little bits of this at a time on my palette knife, okay? Just little tiny bits. I see some artists use palette knives and they just go crazy. They pick up huge amounts of paint. And it's fine, but it makes your painting very messy to work on afterwards if you need to change things around. Having lots and lots of paint on your canvas, I find it just makes things very difficult. Now again, as it comes to the center, I'm adding plenty of red. Plenty of cadmium red, and that will naturally mix with the colours you already have up there. So a little bit of blue again as we come over to the cool side. Again, a little bit more blue. I'm going to create one big wave sort of crashing over just there. I'm going to soften it out with my palette knife. I'm going to soften these ones, simply drag it over at an angle and away. Now we've come a long way in this in the past, what is it, 30 minutes, something like that, 40 minutes? We've come a long way, haven't we? We really have. But, you know, it just shows you that you can paint something nice relatively quickly. I'm going to take some phthalo blue with some white. And into that, touch of cadmium yellow. Don't be shy with the yellow, take plenty of yellow. You want a nice bright kind of a turquoise green. Don't be shy, come on. Get plenty of that on your palette knife. And I'm going to just go along the tops with some highlights. For me, this seascape really is about highlights and catching the brightness of that blue sky. Those are the colours that are kind of jumping at me right now. Those light colours from the bright kind of a bluey green sky are really reflecting down onto the water. So for me, that's what's kind of catching my eye at the moment, and that's what I want to try and capture. So I'm just kind of dragging my palette knife left and right across over the colour I have there at the moment, just kind of scrape it along. What I'm trying to do is just create movement, basically. It's just that simple. A little bit of movement on the water. And the palette knife is probably the best way of doing that. Now a little bit of blue a little bit of white. I'm going to start making it cooler slightly as well. So I'm going to start adding some cool blues into the mix as it goes away out of the canvas. You see the way I'm just flicking this? I'm just dragging it across the canvas. The grain of the canvas is then creating the texture for me. And look, we're getting there now, aren't we? So haven't we created already lots of wonderful texture on that seascape? Just like that. The next thing I want to do with my palette knife is some of those bright orangey colours. And sometimes you will find the palette knife is the best way to do it, because I could be here all day with a brush trying to put in colours and they're constantly, you know, blending together over and over again. Let's try the palette knife. Let's go with cadmium yellow and some cadmium red. Get plenty of thick paint on here, because we can always thin this out with some soft brushes later on. We can soften this out. I'm going to put in this nice orangey colour here first. I just want to soften that across the centre and sort of out into the water. You see, very, very carefully. I don't want to mix it too much. Again, I'm going to start with an orangey colour, and then I'll go into some nice rich colours, some rich yellow colours. So remember, all I would say to you is, you know, if you see a sunset with lots of yellow in the ocean or in the sky, avoid going for that rich bright yellow colour first. Focus on the deeper shades and then work your way up to that lovely yellow colour. I promise it does work. If you just take your time and be careful, it does work. Again, I'm just mixing up a nice bright colour. And you see, with each mix that I mixed in, I'm adding slightly more and more yellow into the mix as I go, okay? Just try it, just give it a go. So you can see now we're building up again to those lovely rich colours. I'm going to go now with some bright yellow and a touch of cadmium red. A lot more yellow in this now. Right, there is one colour I want to put in, and it's naples yellow and a little touch of magenta, or even cadmium red. It's a beautiful salmon sort of a colour, a peachy kind of a colour, pinky hue. I want to just pop some of that in, there and there. It's really a lovely colour. I can see it every time I look at the photograph. I can see this colour, and I just want to make sure I get plenty of this in. A little bit of naples yellow with some cadmium red is the colour I can see. Now, isn't that coming on quite nice so far? Haven't we created a lot of texture in that short of time in the seascape? There's one final piece that I'm going to do now, and I'm going to call this part one finished. Then I'm just going to take some cadmium yellow, rich cadmium yellow, on a nice clean palette knife. Perhaps a touch tiny, tiny touch of red, but lots of cadmium yellow here. I'm just going to start putting some of that cadmium yellow, drag it across, and start introducing that yellowy colour into the scene. I'm being very careful with the blues because I don't want the yellow mixing with the blues and becoming a kind of a muddy green colour, if that makes sense. So I'm being very careful to avoid the dark blues here and there. Now already that's starting to take shape, isn't it? My next step is just a little bit of cadmium yellow with some white. And I'm going to really pack a punch in around the centre here. So little touches of a bright like that, you see how that really catches the eye almost immediately. So I have that much done. I'm pretty happy with that. But what I'm going to do before I finish and call this part 1 finished, my friends, is I want to take a rich dark colour first, some blue and a little black. I just want to add some real dark shade to some of the waves here and there, especially a couple coming around the front like this. I'm just going to go like this and pretend there's a wave crashing along like that. Bring it down and swoop it out. So little circles, look, little circles. It's coming out and it's disappearing downwards. So that's one. We have a nice big one here, don't we? I'm going to go like this with this one, look. Pulling them down again. Even to look at that photograph with those colours, they do look like it's just complete black, doesn't it? But I don't want to go complete black just yet. I want to just allow them to soften, come down and soften in. This will be the break in the Seascape where we have a very light, a very nice kind of a soft watery effect coming along, and it's broken by this kind of a big chunky sort of a wave here, which kind of, it almost sort of fizzles outwards, doesn't it, like this. It kind of, you know what I mean? It sort of, it almost disappears and merges with the one behind it. Almost as though it's just one big kind of rough body of water. So let me just soften some of those back. I'm going to darken some of those in the background as well, just to create some contrast in the background is a good thing. And don't worry, we have lots of highlights and things going on these as well later in part 2. So not to worry too much. We have a lot to do still. Still have a lot of work to do in this lovely little seascape. And I think I'll leave it at that for now. I'm going to call that part 1 finished, my friends. Looking good, looking quite good so far. I am quite happy with this. You know, sometimes you paint something and it doesn't look right, but as you keep painting, it just sort of comes together, doesn't it? For some strange reason, everything just seems to work. Now there's one thing I want to show you how to fix that line across there. Because I know you'll be saying, oh, that's all messy, you have to fix that. Well, let's fix it. Take some bright white or yellow, even pure cadmium yellow on its own will do fine, and let's just cut across. Some of those marks just like that. There we go. That wasn't too difficult, was it? I like fixing mistakes on camera because it just shows you how easy it can be if you make a mistake. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall leave you with this so far. I could maybe just soften some of this here and there, just, you know, there's no particular reason for softening this in. It could be just a case of, let's just try it and see. Most of the time, that's what I do. I just soften it out a little bit and see. It may improve it, it may not, but it's worth a try, I think. Soften some of those back, just slightly. And I think that's turned out quite well. So there we are, part one is finished. We still have a nice bit to do down here and more highlights back in the ocean. So don't worry, there's plenty more to do. We're not done yet. Go and have yourself a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Sit and look at your painting and just observe, look at the colours and see what you think, and just try not to make too many drastic changes very early on in your painting. Just play with a little bit of caution at the beginning. Soft colours, bring them out bit by bit by bit as you're going, and that way it's much easier to fix mistakes and take off colour if you feel it's not going right. But I would definitely say try the palette knife as well. A nice flat-edged palette knife, and just sort of drag paint across the canvas, allowing the grain to take off the paint. And you can see it does create some wonderful effects. So that's it. Thank you for joining me. I'll be right back very, very soon with part two. Thank you so much. Do subscribe, you're missing so much. Press that button and subscribe. I'm trying to help. I'm just trying to help. I'll see you soon. God bless you all, and thank you for watching.